I never thought I'd have to fight for something that was already mine, especially not land that had been in my family for generations. But some fights come to you, whether you're ready or not. It all started with a phone call, 6 in the morning. I was still half asleep, staring at my ceiling, wondering who in their right mind was calling at that hour. When I finally picked up, it was Mrs. Thompson, my grandfather's neighbor for as long as I could remember. Her voice was tight, panicked. "They're digging up your granddad's fields," she said. "You need to come. Now." I tried to make sense of it, still foggy. "Who's digging?" "What are you talking about?" But she wasn't listening. She was already gone. Hung up. That's when I threw a few clothes in a bag and hit the road. 5 hours, barely stopping, pushing the speed limit the entire way back to Meadow Creek. I hadn't been home since Grandpa Joe's funeral, and even then, I'd only stayed for a couple of days. He left me the farm after he passed. 200 acres of land that had been in our family for 4 generations. I thought it was safe. I thought it was mine. Turns out I was wrong. When I finally got close, the road felt different. It used to be quiet, peaceful. But as I crested the last hill, there it was, heavy machinery tearing into the east fields. Bulldozers, excavators, men in hard hats moving like ants, marking ground with orange spray paint. My stomach dropped. This was where Grandpa Joe used to grow soybeans, where I'd spent summers helping him harvest corn, and now there was a sign hammered into the dirt. Future home of Sunny Pines East? 96 luxury homes starting at $450,000. I parked my car and made a beeline for the only person who looked like they were in charge. She was standing off to the side, immaculate in beige slacks and a white blouse that didn't have a speck of dust on it, clipboard in hand. Her phone was pressed to her ear, but when she saw me coming, she gave me a tight-lipped smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, like I was some stranger who'd taken a wrong turn. "What's going on here?" I said. "This is private property." She raised an eyebrow. "We're prepping for a residential development. I'm Diane Reynolds, president of the Sunny Pines HOA. "This land doesn't belong to you," I told her. "It was my grandfather's farm, Joe Miller. He passed away last year and I inherited it." Diane didn't even blink. "There must be some mistake," she said smoothly. "Sunny Pines purchased this parcel last year. We have all the permits." I shook my head. My grandfather would never have sold this land. "Maybe he didn't tell you," she replied, almost like she was trying to be gentle. "The sale was finalized 9 months ago. We've been planning this expansion for years." That's when the unease turned into something colder. Grandpa Joe had been sick near the end, sure, but his mind was still sharp. He never mentioned selling an inch of his land, and if he had, he damn sure would have told me. I asked to see their paperwork. She handed me a business card instead, told me to contact their legal team. Then she turned away, already on her phone again. Like I was nothing more than an interruption. I stood there for a long time, staring at the machines clawing up the dirt. I could feel Grandpa's words in the back of my mind. He always said they'd come for the land someday. But I didn't think he meant it literally. I drove back to the farmhouse, hoping for answers, and found Mrs. Thompson waiting on the porch with a pitcher of iced tea and a face lined with worry. "They showed up about 3 months ago," she said. "Surveyors, measuring tape. Your granddad was furious, said they had no right, kept muttering about how they were trying to steal what wasn't theirs." "Did he ever talk about selling?" I asked. "Never," she said. "He was looking through his old office the day before he went to the hospital. Said he needed to find something important. To protect the farm. I hadn't stepped foot in Grandpa's office since the funeral. Just didn't have it in me. But now I had to. The room smelled like pipe smoke and old books. The walls were lined with shelves, stacked high with farming ledgers and family photo albums. Every detail of the farm's history was in there. Crop yields, rainfall logs, equipment repairs. But I wasn't looking for that. I started with the filing cabinet. Years of paperwork, neatly labeled folders. Nothing about Sunny Pines, nothing about a sale. I was ready to give up when I noticed something odd. A floorboard under the desk, scuffed more than the others. When I pressed it with my foot, it shifted. I grabbed a letter opener and pried it loose. Underneath was a small metal box. There was a key nailed to the underside of the desk. Inside the box was everything. The original deed to the farm. Grandpa's will naming me as his sole heir. And then there was the letter, addressed to me in his handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "If you're reading this," he wrote, "then someone's trying to take what's ours." The letter laid it all out. Developers had been circling for years, offering money, making threats. He refused every time. Near the end, a man from Sunny Pines showed up, said he needed Grandpa's signature for a simple road easement, kept bringing papers. Grandpa never signed anything. "If they say I did, it's a lie," the letter said. "Check the original survey. The truth's in the boundaries." I pulled out the old surveys, one dated 1910, another from 1978, and my stomach flipped. Grandpa's land wasn't just 200 acres. It was nearly 280. And the eastern boundary, it cut right through the existing Sunny Pines development, their clubhouse, 20 homes, and the new construction site. All of it sat on land that was still ours. Sleep wasn't happening that night. I spread the surveys across the kitchen table, comparing them to county records. Somewhere along the line, boundaries had shifted. Land vanished, quietly, piece by piece, until 80 acres were missing. I traced dates. In 1984, there was a minor adjustment recorded, a 10-foot easement. But in 1997, it got worse, a change that stripped nearly 80 acres from our land. And Grandpa? He was in the hospital that entire month. Triple bypass surgery. He couldn't have signed a damn thing. By morning, I was sitting in the office of Walter Franklin, the best property lawyer in Meadow Creek. The only one, really. He was older than I expected, with thick glasses and a bow tie that hadn't been in style for decades. I laid out the surveys on his desk. He took his time, traced the boundary lines with a steady finger. His eyebrows climbed higher with every page. "This is significant," he finally said. "If these are legitimate, and I believe they are, you own land where Sunny Pines already has homes, and where they're building more." I nodded. 20 homes, and their fancy new clubhouse. Walter leaned back in his chair. "We'll need a professional surveyor, verification, but first an injunction. If they keep building, it'll make things harder later." He made some calls. I made some of my own. Down at the county records office, I found a mountain of paperwork. It wasn't easy, but buried in there were patterns. Sunny Pines wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a machine. A tangle of LLCs and shell companies. Same 6 names on every document. Diane Reynolds, her husband, the county commissioner, the planning board director, 2 others I didn't recognize. They controlled everything. And then I found the loan paperwork. $16 million to finance Sunny Pines East. Collateral? My land. Without it, the deal would collapse. I took photos of everything. Then I drove to the Meadow Creek Gazette. Tanya Williams ran the paper. She'd known Grandpa. I told her what I'd found. She listened carefully. "I can't print accusations without proof," she said, "but I can dig into how fast they approved this project." Back at the farm, I found Mrs. Thompson talking to another neighbor, Mr. Grayson. He'd sold his place last year. "Cheap. They fine me every week," he said. "Landscaping violations, noise complaints, said my barn wasn't up to code. I couldn't fight it. Sold out before they bled me dry." How many others? At least a dozen. Always the same pattern. Fines, harassment, until they sold. Diane Reynolds didn't just buy land. She forced people out. But Grandpa wasn't just any landowner. He saw them coming, and he set the trap before he left. By the time Walter Franklin called to tell me the judge had granted our injunction, I already knew what came next. Diane Reynolds had walked straight into a mess that was only getting started, and I wasn't going to stop. The next morning, I was back at the construction site, court order in hand. The workers were still there, like nothing had happened. Bulldozers lined up, engines rumbling, waiting for someone to give the signal. Diane Reynolds wasn't far away. She stood next to her shiny black SUV, tapping away on her phone, barking orders at someone unlucky enough to answer. When she saw me, her expression darkened. I didn't wait for her to speak. I walked straight up to her and handed over the court order. "Construction stops," I said. "Effective immediately. Legal boundaries are in dispute." She scanned the paperwork, her mouth tightening. Her usual calm slipped for a split second before she smoothed it over. "This is a delay tactic," she said. We have permits, approvals. You're wasting everyone's time. Based on fraudulent paperwork, I said. We both know that. I caught it again. That flicker of uncertainty. It was gone as fast as it came, but I'd seen it. She was worried. She should be. You have no idea who you're messing with, she said, voice low enough for only me to hear. I can make your life hell. I smiled, but there wasn't much humor in it. Already working on that, are you? I paused. 16 million in loans, using stolen land as collateral. Fast-tracked approvals from county officials who are secretly investors. I wonder what your homeowners would think if they knew that. Her jaw clenched. You're bluffing. I have names, documents, photos, I said. Try me. For a moment, it looked like she might say something more. Instead, she turned away, snapping orders at her foreman to shut everything down. Machinery idled to a stop. The workers backed off. Quiet settled over the field where corn once grew. That should have felt like a victory, but I knew better. This wasn't over. It wasn't even close. When I got back to the farmhouse, there was a bright orange ticket on my windshield, a $500 fine for parking violations, courtesy of Sunny Pines HOA. The photo attached showed my car parked in my own driveway. It was just the beginning. That night, I sat in Grandpa's old chair, going through his files again. I was looking for anything I'd missed. If he'd prepared for this fight, there might be more. I found it in an old photo album. Community picnic, 2018. Dozens of pictures. Grandpa standing shoulder to shoulder with local business owners, families, old friends. On the back of every photo, names, notes, some of them circled. These weren't just mementos, they were connections. People Grandpa trusted, people who might trust me. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. When I listened, it was Diane. Sweet, controlled. Good evening, she said. Enjoying your stay? I hope so. It might be your last. The next morning, my water shut off, followed by the power. Then came a county inspector who somehow found 24 code violations on a house that had passed inspection less than a year ago. Wiring, plumbing, foundation. Even the porch railing was suddenly unsafe. The fines would cost thousands. Diane was turning up the heat. I called the sheriff. He gave me the runaround. Civil dispute, he said. Sort it out in court. When I hung up, my phone rang again. Diane's name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. She texted instead. I told you. Small town, big connections. Think it over. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. But I was thinking. I had to move faster. That afternoon, I drove to every house on Grandpa's old contact list. People who remembered him, trusted him. Many were tired of Diane's rules, but too scared to speak up. Until now, I showed them the surveys, explained the fraud, the stolen land. One by one, they listened, and they believed me. Sarah Jenkins invited me into her kitchen. Her husband worked 2 jobs to pay for their house, and they'd been fined $500 for growing tomatoes in their front yard. Vegetables aren't aesthetically pleasing, Diane had told them. Sarah still had the letter. Trevor and Maria Martinez told me about the time Diane ordered their kids' swing set taken down. Too colorful. Violated community standards. They'd spent $3,000 fighting the HOA. They lost. The Johnsons weren't allowed to paint their front door the color they wanted. Every house in Sunny Pines was beige with white trim. Diane liked it that way. By sunset, I had a list of 27 families. All of them with stories. All of them angry. And every single one ready to listen. That night, I called Walter Franklin. Is it legal to form a competing HOA? I asked. On your land? Sure, he said. But the existing homes, I'll handle that, I told him. The next morning, I printed flyers. Emergency community meeting. Your home may be at risk. I added copies of the original surveys, posted them on every mailbox, every door, every light post. If Diane wanted war, I was bringing it to her front lawn. That night, the community center was packed. More than 100 people showed up. I stood at the front, facing them. Some were curious. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. Diane arrived late. She walked in like she owned the place, glaring at anyone who dared look her way. This meeting is unauthorized, she said. Everyone needs to leave. No one's leaving, Sarah Jenkins said from the crowd. She stood up, hands shaking, but her voice was clear. We're tired of being bullied. The room erupted in applause. I took a breath and raised my hand. My name is Alex Morgan, I said. My grandfather was Joe Miller. He owned Willow Creek Farm for 60 years, the same land this community was built on. I held up the surveys. These documents prove the land boundaries were falsified. Diane Reynolds and her associates built on stolen land, and now they're trying to steal more. Murmurs turned into gasps. People shifted uncomfortably. Diane's face stayed still, but her eyes flickered. She knew I was telling the truth. 20 homes, I continued. Your clubhouse, this community center. All of it sits on land that legally belongs to me. Chaos. People shouting questions, demanding answers. Calm down, Diane barked. We have legal ownership. Based on fraud, I replied. We've filed an injunction. Construction is stopped, and we've started a lawsuit. That's when I made my offer. I'm not here to take anyone's home. I'm here to fix what's broken. We're forming the Meadow Creek Homeowners Coalition, a new community. Fair rules, transparent leadership, reasonable dues. You can't do that, Diane shouted. These homes are bound to Sunny Pines HOA. Contracts based on fraudulent land sales aren't valid, I said. You know that. She stared at me, pure hatred in her eyes. You're making a mistake, she said. I have friends in high places. This won't end well for you. Maybe not, but I wasn't backing down. By the end of the night, 89 families had joined the coalition. Diane's grip was slipping. She knew it. Everyone knew it. Gerald Fisher, the HOA treasurer, caught me on my way out. There's more, he whispered. The books don't add up. The dues, the fines, they're disappearing. She's been moving money. Show me, I said. We met the next morning in his office. He opened the books. It was worse than I thought. Hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred to companies run by Diane's family. Landscaping, maintenance, security, all paid to her shell companies. This is fraud, I said. Gerald nodded. And people are starting to ask questions. I wasn't surprised when Diane showed up later that day, standing in front of my farmhouse with the county inspector and the sheriff. They handed me more violation notices, claimed my driveway crossed HOA common space, threatened fines, eviction, legal action. Diane stepped forward. Last chance, she said. Sign over the disputed land. Drop your claims. I'll make sure you get a nice payout. No, I said. Her expression hardened. I'm not going to let you destroy everything I built. You already did that yourself. That night I got a text from Tanya at the Gazette. Story runs tomorrow. Front page. It was already happening. Diane's world was coming down, one piece at a time. By morning, the police were back. This time, not for me. They led Diane out in handcuffs, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. She screamed about her connections, her friends on the planning board, the judge who came to her dinner parties. None of it mattered anymore. The story had broken. The truth was out, and it wasn't just my fight anymore. The day Diane Reynolds was arrested, everything shifted. People who'd whispered before now spoke loudly. Homeowners who once smiled politely at HOA meetings now openly asked where their money had gone. The town that had looked the other way while Diane built her empire was suddenly interested in every decision she'd ever made. But it wasn't over yet. The next few months were a grind. Walter Franklin and his team worked overtime to untangle decades of fraud and deception. Gerald Fisher handed over more records, emails, invoices, meeting minutes, that painted a clear picture of how Diane and her circle had operated. Sunshine Consulting, Brightstone Landscaping, all owned by her family, all charging triple the going rate. HOA funds funneled away to pay for luxury cars and second homes. When the numbers came in, they were staggering. Over $1.2 million stolen from the residents of Sunny Pines. We filed formal complaints. Lawsuits followed. Diane's allies scrambled. Some resigned quietly, others fought. But once the Gazette ran its third story, the tide had turned. One by one, Diane's power players backed away. The county commissioner who played golf with her husband, he stepped down. The planning board director who approved her permits, fired. Even the judge who came to her parties recused himself from every case connected to Sunny Pines. For a while, it was chaos. People panicked. Who owned their homes? Who did they owe money to? Some thought about moving. Others wanted to sue everyone in sight. I called another community meeting. This time, it wasn't at the Sunny Pines clubhouse. That was closed, pending an investigation into whether it was legally built on stolen land. We met at Meadow Creek High School. The auditorium was packed again. Some faces were familiar. Others I'd never seen. I'm not here to make this harder than it already is, I told them. You didn't ask for this fight. I did. I laid it out plain. My grandfather's land. The fraudulent boundary changes. The legal mess they were all stuck in. Then I made an offer. I'll give you legal title to the land under your homes, I said. No strings. You won't owe me a dime. The room was dead silent. In exchange, I said, we build something better. A real community. Fair dues. Clear rules. No more fines for having a blue door or a garden. No more harassment. And no more corruption. The vote wasn't even close. The Meadow Creek Homeowners Coalition became the new association. Gerald Fisher was elected treasurer. Sarah Jenkins volunteered to head the Community Garden Committee. Trevor Martinez took charge of maintenance. People stepped up. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Diane's trial dragged on for months. She cut a deal in the end. Pled guilty to fraud and embezzlement. 5 years. Her assets seized. Her home, the one she built with stolen money, was auctioned off. The funds went back to the community she'd bled dry. As for Sunny Pines East, construction stopped cold. Turns out those wetlands my grandfather fought to protect were home to more than just birds and frogs. 3 endangered species lived there. Building on it wasn't just unethical, it was illegal under federal law. The state's Environmental Protection Agency got involved. The fines alone were enough to bankrupt Sunny Pines Development, LLC. Not that there was much left to take. It took time, but we cleaned it up. We restored the marshland, planted trees, put in walking trails and a boardwalk. School kids came on field trips to learn about the local ecosystem. My grandfather's legacy wasn't just safe, it was thriving. And the land? It stayed in the family. I turned the farmhouse into a community center. We held meetings there, cookouts, weddings. It became the heart of Meadow Creek again. 1 year later, I sat on that same porch where Grandpa Joe used to tell me stories. Mrs. Thompson sat beside me sipping lemonade. She watched as kids rode their bikes past houses that now came in more colors than beige. Sarah's garden out front overflowed with tomatoes and peppers. The sound of laughter drifted through the air. Your granddaddy would be proud, Mrs. Thompson said. I nodded. He left me the tools to fight. I just used them. I found his old journal in the back of his desk after everything settled down. Notes on meetings with lawyers, copies of letters he'd sent to the county, photos of the survey markers. He knew they'd try something after he was gone. He just didn't know who would step up when the time came. He trusted it would be me. Now don't get me wrong. There were hard days when I wanted to walk away. Diane made sure of that. But every time I thought about quitting, I thought about those fields. The ones where Grandpa Joe used to stand at sunset, looking out over the land he loved. I wasn't going to let them take that away. Today, Meadow Creek isn't perfect, but it's ours. We vote on what matters. We listen to each other. There are no more secret deals, no more threats, no more lies. And the land? It's alive again. We didn't just take it back. We made it better. As for Diane Reynolds, last I heard, she's spending her days picking up trash on the highway. Court-ordered community service. I guess in the end, we both found ourselves back in the dirt. Difference is, I'm still standing on my grandfather's land, and she's cleaning up the mess she made. Funny how things work out.